What I'm trying to get through in this tutorial is just how to identify notes on the guitar fretboard. If you were to learn anything from this tutorial, what would be the most important parts are learning the notes of the E string and the notes of the A string. The reason why this is important is because from here, if you want to know chords all the way up the fretboard, you can simply refer to those notes in order to form your shapes. So if you wanted to make a G major bar chord, you would know to go to the 3rd fret of the 6th string and form a major shape. If you wanted to know where a scale was in position, you could simply go to that fret and perform the scale. For example, the C blues scale, you would need to know where C is, so you would go to the 8th fret of the 6th string and perform your blues scale from that fret. So here you can see I have a blank fretboard drawn here. I've labelled the frets up the top, fret number 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 12. And I've got my strings on the left hand side here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. I've also drawn this part here a little bit thicker to represent the nut. And in between, I've put some dots on there like what the guitar fretboard would have. So I've put a dot at the 3rd fret, dot at the 5th fret, dot at the 7th fret, 9th fret, and double dots at the 12th fret. What we're going to do now is we're just going to go through and label what the strings are from thinnest to thickest. So string number 1 would be E, then I would have B, then G, D, A, and E. So very quickly, you'll notice that the 2 on the outside are both E's. That's quite important to remember. Also, just keep in mind this E down the bottom here is our thickest string. That would be the one that would be closest to your chin if you were playing the guitar. This one here is our E, that's our thinnest string, that would be closest to the ground. Now, as we want to learn the notes of the fretboard, what's quite important is that we learn the notes of the musical alphabet. Now, the musical alphabet starts on A and then finishes at G. After G, it goes back to A. So we have our notes A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A. And in this instance, we're going to start from E, which is going to be our thickest string at the bottom here, E. What's quite important to remember here is within our notes, in between our notes, we also sometimes have some black keys on the keyboard, which are our sharps and flats. We also have those on the guitar. So as we look on with the keyboard, you can see in between the notes of E and F, we have no black notes. Now, just starting with the 6th string here, that would mean that from the open string to the 1st fret would be the distance from E to F. As I look between F and G, I can see there is a black note in between. That black note would fall on the 2nd fret just here. Therefore, my G would be on the 3rd fret. If I look between my G and my A, I also have a black note, which would be here. Okay, then at the 5th fret, I would have my A. If I look a little bit further, in between A and B, yes, I have a black note, which would be here. That would mean my B would be on the 7th fret. So as we get to B, you'll notice there is no black note between B and C. So that would mean C would be on the 8th fret, right next to B. I do have a black note between C and D, so I'm going to leave 1 fret gap, and I'm going to put my D on the 10th fret. That takes me to my E, which is what my string started with. Now, this is a good checking point here. In between D and E, I do have a black note. Okay, I have a D sharp or an E flat, which is this one here. So I'm just going to put my E where the double dots is. Now, to double check that you've got this right and you understand how these notes work, what you should always have is the string open would also be the same note as the 12th fret. So now that we have discussed the notes of the 6th string, we have covered pretty much the most important string of the guitar with this one. From here, we can figure out what all the notes on the other strings are. So starting with A on the next string here, this A that I have here is the same A as the 5th string open. If you play them one after another, if the guitar is in tune, you should have the same sounding note. So here you can just correspond what you've got previously on the 6th string with what's on the 5th string. So I leave a fret gap and I have my B. I have no gap between B and C. I leave a fret gap for D, like I have here, and then between D and E, I have another fret gap. Okay, now if I'm here, I can also go back to the start here of this string and look to F. There is no fret gap, so I put my F in there. Then I have a fret gap between F and G. And I also have a fret gap between G and A. Now this works because, as you can see, my 5th string open is the same as my 12th fret. Now there is a trick to the 4th string. You could do the same thing. You could go, okay, well, D and D, therefore this one is going to be E, like what I have here with a fret gap in between. You could do it that way, or you could also look at this note here, this E and this E, and just think, all right, well, everything is going to be the same, just 2 frets up. So if I look at my F, 2 frets up, it's just a diagonal switch between the two. G, diagonally, A, diagonally, B, same thing, C, and then I have my D. Now, as I can see, my D matches up, D, 12th fret, D. On the G, same thing with the A string as what you did with the E and the D. So we would have from G to A, as I can see here, it's got a 1 fret gap. So G to A to A, I've got my diagonal there. So that means my B, diagonal gap, C, D, E, F, and once again, I'm back to G. The most important rules to remember are the notes of the 6th string, then how to get the notes of the 5th string from that. So the same thing, but just take it back from the A. Then the 2+2 method, so up 2 strings across 2 frets. Same as we go up, across 2 frets. So with the B string, I'm going to do the same as what I did with the A string from the E string. I look at where my B is. Okay, I've got a B here, 1 fret up, C. I have a fret gap, D. To E, there's a gap there as well. No gap between E and F. Then I have a fret gap between F and G. A fret gap between G and A, as you can see here. And a fret gap between A and B. Lastly, another easy one for the 1st string here, E, F, G. It's the same as what's on the 6th string, so I can just go ahead and put those in. Okay, now this seems like a lot to remember all the notes of the fretboard. I wouldn't expect anybody to be able to remember this that easy. What you could remember though is just the notes of the 6th string and those rules. So there is no gap between E and F, and there is no gap between B and C. You could also then relate that to the 5th string. So you're basically just adding the 5 frets kind of method, where you start at A here and then you do the same thing. So if you can memorize the 6th and the 5th string, you can then also figure out from the 6th string, well, that's the same as the 1st string. You can also identify the notes on the 4th and the 3rd string using the method of the 2+2, up 2 strings across 2 frets. Now, when it comes to creating bar chords and different types of chords on the guitar, the most important strings that you will need to know are the 6th and the 5th string. There are a lot of very competent guitarists out there that wouldn't be able to tell you off by heart what the fret names are on the 4th, 3rd, and 2nd strings. So next time you're working out bar chords, or you want to know where a certain note is on different strings, try and use some of those tips and see how you go.